Discovery. The Orion's Pride glided silently through the void, its sleek hull reflecting starlight like a polished mirror. Inside the ship, Captain Lena Sorensen stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen displaying their target, a colossal alien megastructure orbiting a distant, nameless star. "All right, people, this is it," Lena said, her voice steady with authority. "We're about to make history." The megastructure loomed larger as they approached, a serpentine construct of gleaming metal and pulsing conduits winding around the star, harnessing its energy. Lena felt a thrill rush through her. This was the find of the millennium. "Sensor readings coming in now, Captain," said Science Officer Jamal Singh, his dark eyes wide as he parsed the incoming data. It's beyond anything we've seen. The scale, the energy signatures. This tech is millennia beyond us." Lena nodded, a smile tugging at her lips. That's why they were here. As the vanguard ship of the Terran interstellar expedition, the Orion's Pride had been chasing mysteries at the galaxy's edge for years. Ancient alien ruins, whispers of long-vanished civilizations. They were the stuff of legend. Until now. "Take us in closer, nice and steady," Lena ordered. "Let's find a way inside that thing." As they approached, a sudden flash of light emanated from the megastructure's surface. The ship lurched as a beam of energy locked onto its hull. "Captain, we're caught in some kind of tractor beam," yelled the pilot, Eri Nakamura, his hands flying over the controls. Engines straining to compensate. Lena gripped the arms of her chair as the ship shuddered, the beam inexorably pulling them toward a yawning portal opening on the megastructure's surface. "Eri, kill the engines," she commanded. "Looks like we're being invited inside. Let's not keep our hosts waiting." The Orion's Pride glided through the portal and emerged into a cavernous docking bay, the walls thrumming with arcane energy. Lena rose from her chair, heart pounding with excitement and trepidation. "Suit up, everyone," she said, striding toward the bridge exit. "We're going to see what's inside this thing. Singh, Nakamura, Nichols, you're with me. The rest of you, monitor comms, and be ready to bug out if things go sideways." In the airlock, Lena and her team donned their excursion gear, checking seals and oxygen levels. Tara Nichols, the ship's maintenance tech, caught Lena's eye, a mix of anxiety and anticipation on her young face. "Captain, do you think there's still, aliens in there?" Tara asked, fidgeting with her tool belt. Lena smiled reassuringly. "Unlikely. Initial scans show no life signs. But stay sharp. In a place like this, expect the unexpected." The airlock hissed open, and they stepped out onto the cold metal of the alien docking bay. Beams of light crisscrossed the space, scanning them. Then, with a deep, resonant hum, a section of the far wall slid open, revealing a long, vaulted corridor leading deeper into the megastructure. "Looks like we're being given the grand tour," Lena said. "Let's move out. And remember, we're representatives of humanity out here. Let's do our species proud." Together, they set forth into the alien marvel, the metal corridor thrumming beneath their boots, beckoning them onward into the unknown wonders and dangers that lay ahead. As they navigated deeper into the megastructure's twisting passageways, a sense of awe overtook the team. The architecture defied reason. Curves and angles merging in mind-bending configurations, materials with properties that shouldn't be possible according to human science. Glowing conduits pulsed like veins along the walls, crackling with unimaginable energies. "Captain, these energy readings are off the charts," Jamal said, his eyes wide as he consulted his scanner. "Whatever this place is generating could power an entire sector of human space. A pity the builders aren't still around to share their secrets." Eri mused, running a gloved hand along the smooth, iridescent metal of the wall. Imagine what humanity could do with tech like this. Lena felt a flicker of unease at Eri's sentiment, even as the same thoughts raced through her own mind. So much power, just waiting to be claimed. But what had become of the civilization that had wielded it? Why abandon a marvel like this? Stay focused, she said, as much to herself as her team. We're here to learn, not to start planning ways to exploit alien magic before we even understand it. Tara, who had been quiet as they walked, fiddling intensely with her scanner, suddenly piped up. "Captain, I'm detecting an unusual energy signature up ahead. Stronger than the ambient readings we've seen so far. Could be important." Lena raised an eyebrow, impressed. Tara was young and untested compared to the rest of the crew, but her technical aptitudes were undeniable. "Lead the way, Nichols. Let's see what you found." Tara guided them down a side passageway, narrower than the grand thoroughfares they'd been traversing. The thrum of energy grew stronger, making their teeth buzz and the fine hairs on their arms stand on end. The passageway opened up into a circular chamber, dominated by a towering structure at its center, a column of pulsing light and swirling symbols, like an endless array of glyphs tumbling through an hourglass. A control panel stood before it, covered in glowing sigils and what looked like input ports. "Whoa," Tara breathed, her eyes reflecting the mesmerizing dance of light. "What is this thing?" "If I had to venture a guess based on the configuration and central location, I'd say it's a transportation device," Jamal said, excitement hitching his voice higher. "A gateway to somewhere else, like the docking portal that brought us in." Lena's heart raced at the prospect. An alien transporter, connecting to who knew what distant cosmic locales. The potential for discovery was staggering. She stepped forward, examining the controls more closely. "These look like they could be power interfaces," she said, indicating a series of circular ports. "I'm guessing this gateway is designed to draw a massive surge of energy when activated." She glanced back at Tara, who was already poking at her tools thoughtfully. "Nichols, see if you can rig up a portable power cell to one of those ports. Let's see if we can wake this beast up and find out where it goes." "On it, Captain," Tara said eagerly, slinging her pack off and digging into its contents. As Tara worked, Lena stepped back, drinking in the enormity of the moment. The secrets of the universe, of a civilization ancient and wise beyond reckoning, could be within their grasp. She tried to silence the small, needling voice of caution in the back of her mind. They were on the cusp of a breakthrough for humanity. Whatever risks lay ahead would be worth it. If only she had known then just how monumental those risks would prove to be. That by the time this day was done, the fate of worlds would hang in the balance, and the resourcefulness of one young maintenance tech might be all that stood between victory and the most dreaded foe humankind had ever faced. Tara's hands flew deftly over the alien control panel, hooking up leads and adapters from her kit, brow furrowed in concentration. The rest of the team stood back, watching with bated breath, pulses of light from the gateway shimmering across their awed faces. "Almost there," Tara muttered, tongue caught between her teeth as she made a final adjustment. "This should do it," connecting the power cell. Now, with a low, resonant hum, the alien device surged to life. The swirling light within the column intensified, the cascading symbols accelerating to a dizzying blur. The deep vibration shook the floor beneath their feet. "It's working," Jamal crowed, consulting his scanner, power levels climbing rapidly. "I think it's going to." His words were cut off as a blinding flare of light erupted from the column. The team staggered back, shielding their eyes. As the glare receded, they gaped in wonder at what had appeared. Hovering within the column was a shimmering portal, its surface rippling like a vertical pool of quicksilver. Beyond it, tantalizing glimpses could be caught of somewhere else, soaring metal spires under unfamiliar stars, grand halls filled with strange and wondrous machines. "Incredible," Ari breathed. "It's a gateway to somewhere. Remarkable." Lena stepped forward cautiously, the quicksilver glow of the portal washing over her. She glanced back at Tara, who was beaming with pride and excitement. "Excellent work, Nichols," Lena said warmly. This is beyond what we could have hoped for." She looked to Jamal and Ari, saw her own adventurous spirit reflected in their eyes. The unspoken question hung in the air between them. Were they really going to do this? Step into an alien portal, destination unknown. Lena felt the weight of her captaincy, the trust her crew placed in her to make the right calls. But she also felt the pull of the portal, the siren song of discovery, and the drive to push humanity further than ever before. "We didn't come this far to turn back now," she said resolutely. "We do this together. For Earth, for humanity. Whatever we find on the other side, we face it as a team." Ari and Jamal nodded solemnly, squaring their shoulders. Tara stepped up to join them, toolkit in hand, practically vibrating with anticipation. Lena activated her comm. "Orion's pride, this is the captain. We've activated what appears to be a transportation device. The team and I are going to step through and investigate. If we're not back in 24 hours, inform Expeditionary Command and proceed as per protocol. Wish us luck." With that, she closed the channel and turned to face the shimmering quicksilver surface. She took a deep breath, reached out to clasp the hands of her team. Together, they stepped forward into the light. There was a lurch, a sense of falling and flying at once, a kaleidoscopic blur of light and impossible shapes. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. They stumbled out onto solid ground, blinking in the sudden change of brightness. As their eyes adjusted, awe stole their breath away. They stood in a vast chamber, its ceiling soaring up into misty heights. The walls were lined with pulsing conduits, glowing with mesmerizing patterns. And all around them, more portals shimmered. Dozens, maybe hundreds, each with glimpses of alien vistas beyond imagination. "It's a nexus," Jamal said, wonder and almost religious reverence in his voice. "A hub connecting the megastructures. Gateways to who knows how many corners of the universe." Lena could only nod, her mind reeling as it tried to encompass the sheer scale of what they'd discovered. The paths to more knowledge than humanity had ever dreamed of lay before them, and the terrible, exhilarating question of what to do with it. But before they could even begin to grapple with that question, a sound cut through the grand silence of the chamber, a sound that sent chills down their spines and turned their blood to ice. It was an alarm, a strident, piercing klaxon that echoed from every surface. The light of the portals dimmed, replaced by the pulsing red of warning indicators. "What's happening?" Ari yelled over the cacophony. "What did we do?" Tara was already back at the portal they'd come through, scanner out, fingers dancing over the controls. Her face paled as she read the flowing data. "It's not us," she shouted. "The portal activation. It sent out some kind of signal. Something's detected us. Something big." No sooner had the words left her mouth than the grand portal at the far end of the chamber flared to blinding brilliance. The team staggered back, shielding their eyes. As the glare receded, they beheld a sight out of nightmares. Through the far portal, a shape was emerging. Vast, dark, and angular, it dwarfed their Orion's pride. It was a ship, but unlike any humanity had ever seen. Its hull was a jagged, obsidian-like material that seemed to drink in light. Baleful red illumination glared from recesses along its surface. What is that thing?" Tara whispered, fear strangling her voice. As if in answer, a deep, grating voice boomed out from the alien ship, so loud they could feel it in their bones. "Interlopers detected. Trespassers in the domain of the Soul Dominion. You have activated a relic of the ancient enemy. Prepare to be annexed into the Empire, or eradicated." Lena felt a cold dread settle in her gut as she beheld the monstrous ship, listened to its chilling proclamation. In the span of a few short hours, their mission of discovery had turned into a nightmare. They'd stumbled into the middle of an ancient conflict, and now the bill had come due. She looked to her team, saw the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. They were the emissaries of Earth out here. The fate of their world, of their species, might very well rest on their shoulders in the coming hours. "Back to the ship," she commanded, iron in her voice. "Now. We need to warn Earth. And then we fight for our right to be out here. No matter the odds." As one, They turned and raced back through their portal, the shadow of the Soul ship looming over them, the fate of galaxies suddenly, terribly uncertain. But even in that darkness, a flicker of something else kindled, something indomitable and quintessentially human. The same spirit that had brought them to the stars, that had unlocked this ancient mystery. They would not go quietly. Humanity would have its say in the cosmos, no matter how high the odds were stacked against them. In that moment, racing back to her ship to face the oncoming storm, Lena felt a fierce pride swell within her. It was time for humans to show the universe what they were made of. And may the stars tremble when they did. The unlikely hero. The Orion's pride shuddered as another blast from the Soul ship slammed into its shields. On the bridge, warning lights flashed red and alarms blared, the cacophony of a ship in dire straits. Captain Lena Sorensen gripped the arms of her command chair, knuckles white, jaw clenched. On the view screen, the Soul ship loomed like a predator toying with its prey, obsidian hull drinking in the light of the alien star. Shields down to 20%. Eri yelled over the chaos. We can't take much more of this. Lena's mind raced, strategies and tactics flashing through her thoughts. But each one crumbled under the harsh reality of their situation. They were outmatched in every way. Technology, firepower, sheer scale. The Soul ship dwarfed the Orion's pride like an elephant versus a mouse. Jamal, any luck getting a message out to Earth? She asked, hoping against hope. Jamal shook his head grimly. They're jamming all long-range communications. We're on our own out here. Despair threatened to overwhelm Lena. She had led her crew into this nightmare. The responsibility weighed on her like a physical burden, crushing the breath from her lungs. Was this how humanity's grand venture into the stars was destined to end? Snuffed out by an ancient, implacable foe before they'd even had a chance to truly begin. Captain. Tara's voice cut through the grim reverie. The young maintenance tech looked up from her console, eyes alight with a feverish intensity. I have an idea. It's a long shot, but it might be our only chance. Lena leaned forward, desperate for any spark of hope. What is it? Nichols. Tara swallowed hard, as if steeling herself. The megastructure, the portals, they're all connected, drawing power from the same central source. If we could overload that source, send a surge through the entire network, it might disable the Soul ship long enough for us to escape. Jamal frowned. But how? We barely understood how to activate a single portal. Overloading the entire system, it's beyond our capabilities. Tara shook her head, undeterred. Not with our technology, no. But we don't need to understand it. We just need to disrupt it. Introduce something into the network that it can't handle. Lena's brow furrowed. What are you suggesting, Nichols? Tara took a deep breath. I go back to the portal chamber. I rig up a feedback loop using our power cells. If I can create a big enough surge, it should overload the system, blow out the whole network like a string of overcharged Christmas lights. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. They all understood the implications. The risk. Tara, the amount of energy you're talking about, you'd be caught right in the middle of it, Eri said quietly. Even if it works, chances of survival are. He trailed off, unable to finish. Tara met his gaze steadily, a flicker of fear in her eyes, but overshadowed by determination. I know the risks, she said, but it's our best shot. Maybe our only shot. The mission. Earth. That's what matters. Not me. Lena felt torn asunder. Every fiber of her being rebelled against sending one of her crew, especially one so young, on what amounted to a suicide mission. But Tara was right. The stakes were too high. Earth, humanity, faced with annihilation at the hands of the Soul, weighed against one brave life. Was there really any choice? Do it, Lena said, the words tasting like ashes in her mouth. Get to the portal chamber. We'll give you as much time as we can. Tara nodded solemnly, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes, Gratitude for not making the horrendous choice any harder than it already was. She turned to go, ready to sacrifice everything for a world she might never see again. "Tara," Lena called out, halting the young woman at the threshold of the bridge. We. Words failed her. What could she say? "Thank you. I'm sorry." They all felt hopelessly inadequate in the face of Tara's courage. But Tara seemed to understand. She smiled, a small brave thing in the face of Armageddon. "Give him hell, Captain," she said softly. "And when you get back to Earth, have a drink for me." Then she was gone, racing down the corridor towards the airlock, towards a fate both terrible and awe-inspiring in its selflessness. On the view screen, the Soul ship grew larger, its shadow falling over them like a shroud. Lena straightened in her chair, grief and pride warring in her heart. "You heard her," she said to her crew, voice raw but unwavering. "Let's give him hell." Under her breath, a whisper, a prayer, a promise. "Godspeed, Tara Nichols. Humanity won't forget what you've done here today." The Orion's pride, battered but unbowed, surged forward with the desperate courage of the doomed and the indomitable, ready to buy the time needed for one hero to save them all, or die trying. In the cavernous silence of the alien portal chamber, Tara worked frantically. Conduits sparked and energy pulsed around her as she spliced wires and jury-rigged connections, hands steady even as her heart raced with the knowledge of what was to come. "Just a little more," she muttered to herself, sweat beading on her forehead. Almost there. The ship shook with another impact, nearly knocking her off her feet. She gritted her teeth, fingers flying even faster. There was no time, never enough time. As she worked, Tara's eyes fell on the shimmering surface of the nearest portal, the promise of wonders and horrors unknown flickering in its quicksilver depths. It was enough to freeze a soul, that abyss. But she pushed through, focusing on the task at hand even as existential dread clawed at the edges of her mind. She thought of Earth, blue and green and achingly beautiful, all she had ever known, of the family she'd left behind, the friends and loved ones whose faces she might never see again. They would never know the full story of what happened here, the price paid for their survival. But that was all right. It had to be, because they would survive. They would have a future, and that was worth any sacrifice. With a final, determined twist of her wrist, Tara locked the last connection into place. The makeshift device in her hands hummed ominously, power cells straining at their casings, ready to unleash a cataclysm. "Here goes nothing," she whispered. "And everything." Her finger hovered over the activation switch. She hesitated, just for the space of a heartbeat. Was she ready for this? To give up everything, to dive into the unknown and let the abyss take her, all on the desperate hope that it would be enough. The ship shuddered again, alarms blaring, the sound of twisting metal echoing through the chamber. The voices of her crewmates, her friends, crackled over the comm, shouting words lost to the din of battle. They were fighting for her, fighting to give her this one chance. This one, infinitesimal hope to make a difference. Tara's jaw clenched, resolve crystallizing in her heart like a diamond formed under immeasurable pressure. For Earth, for humanity, for the dream of a future among the stars. "See you on the other side," she said to no one and everyone. A benediction, a farewell. Then, with no more hesitation, she activated the device. The world exploded into light and fire. Energy surged through the makeshift construct, raw and uncontrolled. It leaped from the device in arcs of searing plasma, grounding itself in the pulsing conduits of the chamber. The portals flared bright, then brighter still, their quicksilver surfaces becoming incandescent. Tara screamed as stray arcs found her suit, coursing through her like the wrath of an angry god. She fell to her knees, vision whiting out, every nerve alight with agony. But she held on, gripping the device like a lifeline, even as it scorched her hands. She had to hold on, just a little longer, just long enough. Through the haze of pain, she thought she could hear the voice of the Soul ship, no longer booming with arrogance, but high and strangled with what might have been fear. Energy surge detected. Systems compromised. Disengaging. Disengag. The transmission cut off. The chamber shuddered like a dying beast, the very fabric of the megastructure unraveling, as the uncontrolled energy tore through it like wildfire. Portals winked out of existence. Conduits burst in showers of molten sparks. Terra held on through it all, a scream of defiance and desperate hope tearing from her throat. For one endless, shining moment, she was the heart of a star being born, a supernova in the making. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The device exploded in a final burst of brilliant, searing light. The shock waves slammed into Terra, flinging her broken body across the chamber like a rag doll. She hit the far wall and crumpled, limbs askew, helmet visor spiderwebbed with cracks. Around her, the chamber lay in ruins, the once awe-inspiring expanse now a blasted, smoking hellscape. Silence fell, deep and absolute. In the distance, the low groans of a mortally wounded megastructure echoed like the last gasps of a dying titan. Terra lay still, her suit a shattered ruin, life signs flatlined. The price had been paid, the sacrifice made. On the still-functioning view screen of the Orion's Pride, the sole ship listed, dark and powerless, systems fried by the unimaginable energy surge. They were safe. Against all odds, against an enemy beyond reckoning, one human had stood tall. One hero had given everything. And in that moment, though they could not know it yet, the course of galactic history had been forever altered. Humanity had made its mark, writ in the blood and courage of its best and brightest. The universe would never be the same, and the name Terra Nichols would echo in the annals of human legend for eons to come. The sacrifice. In the shattered remains of the portal chamber, all was still. The once pulsing conduits lay dark and lifeless, the grand machinery reduced to twisted, smoking ruins, and amidst it all, the broken form of Terra Nichols, her suit a ruin, her life signs flat. On the Orion's Pride, the crew stared at the view screen in numb disbelief. The Exol ship, that monstrous juggernaut that had seemed invincible mere moments ago, now drifted powerless and dark, systems fried by the unimaginable energy surge Terra had unleashed. They had won. Against all odds, against an enemy beyond reckoning, they had survived. But the price. Captain Lena Sorensen gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles white, her eyes haunted. Terra Nichols, so young, so brave. She had given everything, sacrificed all, for her crew, for her species, and Lena had let her go. The weight of that decision settled on Lena's shoulders like a physical burden, crushing the air from her lungs. She had sent Terra to her death. Logically, she knew it had been the only choice, the only hope. But in her heart, in the depths of her soul, it felt like a betrayal. Captain. Ares' voice was a hoarse whisper, disbelief, and grief warring in his tone. She, Terra, she did it. Lena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. On the screen, the sole ship listed, a dead thing, a monument to the courage of one human woman. Jamal's hands shook as he ran scans, his eyes wide and disbelieving. The megastructure, the portals, they're all offline. The energy surge must have overloaded the entire network. Lena forced herself to stand, to face her crew. They looked to her, lost, grieving, in need of leadership now more than ever. Terra Nichols gave her life to save us, she said, her voice raw but unwavering. To save Earth, we will not let that sacrifice be in vain. She straightened, squaring her shoulders beneath the weight of her duty, her guilt, her pride. Jamal, keep scanning. I want to know the moment there's any change in the soul ship's status. Ari, set a course back to the portal chamber. We're bringing Terra home. They leaped to obey, grief temporarily pushed aside by the necessity of action. Lena turned back to the view screen, to the image of the shattered, soul ship. This isn't over, she whispered, half to herself, half to the uncaring void beyond. Terra bought us a reprieve, but the soul, they'll be back, and we'll be ready. In the ruins of the portal chamber, they found her. Terra Nichols, hero of Earth, broken and still amidst the devastation she had wrought. They gathered her up with reverent hands, carried her back to the Orion's Pride like pallbearers carrying a fallen queen. In the med bay, they laid her out, cleaned away the blood and the soot, sealed her in a makeshift coffin fashioned from a survival pod. Lena stood over her, grief and guilt a living thing in her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words inadequate, meaningless in the face of such sacrifice. "I'm so sorry, Terra. You deserved better. You deserved everything." She reached out, laid a hand on the cold metal of the coffin. A final farewell, a benediction for a fallen hero. Then, sudden and shocking, a sound that had no place in this moment of grief and reverence. A sound from the coffin itself. A gasp. A cough. The rattling, wheezing breath of lungs suddenly desperate for air. Lena staggered back, eyes wide, heart in her throat. It couldn't be. It was impossible. But even as her mind reeled, the lid of the coffin burst open. And there, sitting up like Lazarus risen from the tomb, was Terra Nichols, alive, breathing. Her eyes, those brilliant, brave eyes, blinked open. She looked around, confusion and wonder writ large on her face. "Captain," her voice was a rasp, a whisper, but it was the most beautiful sound Lena had ever heard. What happened? Did it work?" Lena couldn't speak, couldn't find the words. She simply stared, tears streaming down her face, a joy beyond words, beyond understanding, filling her heart to bursting. Terra was alive. By some miracle, some twist of fate beyond reckoning, she had survived. Survived to fight another day, to stand as a living symbol of humanity's courage, resilience, indomitable will. In that moment, as Terra Nichols breathed once more, anything seemed possible. The soul, the mysteries of the megastructure, the very stars themselves, all of it was within reach. For if one human could defy death itself, what could all of humanity achieve, united in purpose and in courage? The future, vast and full of terror and wonder, beckoned, and Lena knew, with a certainty that resonated in her very bones, that they would face it head-on. Together. Earth's legend had only just begun. The return. In the depths of soul space, a vast fleet gathered. Ships of jagged obsidian and pulsing crimson, each one a testament to the might and the fury of the soul dominion. At their heart, the flagship, a monstrous thing of spires and shadows, a weapon forged for conquest and subjugation. On its bridge, a figure loomed. Tall and terrible, clad in armor the color of spilled blood, it stood before a view screen that spanned the length of the chamber. The image on the screen was a familiar one. A tiny, primitive ship, a mote of dust against the grandeur of the megastructure. The Orion's Pride, the ship that had defied the might of the soul, the ship that had harbored the human who had brought the Dominion to its knees. Terra Nichols. The name was a curse, a promise of retribution on the lips of the soul commander, the human who dared. Around the commander, lesser soul worked frantically at their stations, their fear a palpable thing in the recycled air of the bridge. They had all seen what one human could do. They had all felt the sting of that impossible defeat. Commander Zolrath, a subordinate approached, its head bowed, its voice trembling. "The fleet is assembled. We await your command." Zolrath did not turn, its gaze fixed on the image of the Orion's Pride. "Set a course for the megastructure," it said, its voice a rumble of distant thunder. "We will finish what we started. We will crush these humans and their defiance beneath the heel of the Dominion." The subordinate bowed hastily and scurried away, eager to escape the commander's presence. Zolrath paid it no mind. Its thoughts were consumed with visions of retribution, of the Orion's Pride broken and burning, of Terra Nichols screaming her last. "You will pay, human," it whispered to the uncaring stars. "You and all your kind. The soul do not forget. The soul do not forgive. On the Orion's Pride, the mood was one of tentative celebration tempered by the knowledge of battles yet to come. In the mid-bay, Tara Nichols, hero of Earth, miraculous survivor, lay recovering. Her body was battered, her mind reeling from her brush with oblivion. But her spirit burned brighter than ever. Captain Lena Sorensen sat at her bedside, wonder and relief warring on her face. "How are you feeling?" she asked softly. Tara managed a smile, weak but genuine. "Like I went 10 rounds with the supernova," she quipped. "But I'm alive. Thanks to you. Thanks to everyone." Lena shook her head. "No, Tara. We're alive thanks to you. What you did, it was beyond brave. Beyond heroic. You saved us all." Tara's smile faded, replaced by a look of grim determination. "And I'd do it again," she said, her voice a whisper of steel. "For Earth, for humanity, for the chance to stand tall among the stars." Lena felt her heart swell with pride, with a fierce, unyielding love for this brave, indomitable young woman. "The Xol will be back," she said. "They won't let a defeat like this stand. They'll come for us with everything they have." Tara nodded, unsurprised. "Then we'll be ready," she said simply. "We'll fight. We'll win. We'll show them and the whole damn universe what humanity is made of." Lena reached out, grasped Tara's hand in her own. A promise, a pact sealed in the sterile air of the mid-bay. "Together," she said, her voice a vow. "Earth stands together." Tara's grip was strong, her eyes alight with a fire that no force in the cosmos could quench. "Together," she echoed, "until the stars themselves burn out." And in that moment, a legend was born. A legend of a species that would not bow, would not break. A species that would stand, united and unyielding, against the darkness of the void, and all the terrors it held. The legend of humanity rising. In the days that followed, the crew of the Orion's Pride worked tirelessly, preparing for the battle they knew was coming. They fortified the ship, studied the scans of the Xol vessels, practiced drills and maneuvers until they could execute them in their sleep. And at the heart of it all was Tara. Tara, who pushed herself harder than anyone, who pored over the data from the megastructure, seeking any advantage, any edge they could use against their implacable foe. "There's something here," she muttered, her eyes bloodshot from long hours staring at screens. "Something we're missing. Some key to the technology of the builders, something that could turn the tide." Lena laid a hand on her shoulder, gentle but firm. "We'll find it," she assured. "But you need rest, Tara. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." Tara started to protest, but the words died on her lips as she saw the concern, the care in her captain's eyes. She nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of her fatigue. "You're right," she admitted. I can't shake the feeling that we're running out of time." As if in answer to her words, the alarm klaxons began to blare. Lena and Tara exchanged a look of grim understanding. It was here. The moment they had been dreading, the moment they had been preparing for. The Xol had come. They raced to the bridge, adrenaline pumping, hearts pounding. On the view screen, the sight that greeted them was one out of nightmares. The Xol fleet, vast and terrible, filling the void like a plague of locusts. And at their head, the flagship, a monstrosity of jagged edges and pulsing malevolent light. "Incoming transmission," Jomel reported, his voice tight with tension. It's from the flagship." Lena straightened, squaring her shoulders beneath the weight of her duty. "On screen," she commanded. The view screen flickered, the image of the Xol fleet replaced by a sight even more chilling. Commander Zolrath, resplendent in its armor of blood and shadow, its eyes burning with a hatred as cold and merciless as the void itself. "Captain Sorensen." Its voice was a razor across the soul. "You have something that belongs to me. Someone who owes the Xol Dominion a debt of blood." Lena met the commander's gaze, unflinching. "Tara Nichols owes you nothing," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "She stood against you. She defeated you. And she will do so again, as many times as it takes. Zolrath's laughter was a thing of nightmare, echoing across the comlink like the tolling of a funeral bell. Brave words, Captain. But bravery alone will not save you, will not save her. You face the might of the Soul Dominion, a power beyond your reckoning. Lena leaned forward, her eyes alight with a fire to match Zolrath's own. You face humanity, she said, each word a thrown gauntlet. A species you have underestimated to your peril. A species that will fight to its last breath, its last ship, its last defiant heart. She stood tall, a queen, an empress, a symbol of all that humanity could be. We do not stand alone, she declared. Tara Nichols does not stand alone. Behind her, behind us, stands every human who has ever looked to the stars and dreamed of something more. And together, we will not fall. On the view screen, Zolrath's face contorted with rage, with a hatred beyond words. Then together, you will burn, it snarled. That Sol will darken your skies, shatter your worlds, until the very memory of your defiance is naught but ashes on the stellar wind. The screen went dark, the image of Zolrath replaced once more by the armada of the Sol, poised to strike. On the bridge of the Orion's Pride, a silence fell, heavy with the weight of the moment. Then Tara stepped forward, her head held high, her eyes shining with a light undimmed by all she had endured. They're wrong, she said, her voice a clarion call in the stillness. We're not alone. We've never been alone. She turned to face her crewmates, her friends, her family, and all but blood. Every human who has ever dared to dream, to reach beyond what they were told was possible. They stand with us now. Every hero, every explorer, every soul who refused to be bound by the chains of gravity or fear. Their strength is our strength. Her gaze found Lena's, held it, a connection forged in the fires of shared trial and shared hope. We are humanity, she said, the words a vow, a promise, an unbreakable oath. And we will not be denied our place among the stars. Lena nodded, pride and love a living flame in her heart. She turned to her crew, to the men and women who had followed her to the very edge of the unknown. Battle stations, she commanded, her voice ringing across the bridge. We fight not just for ourselves, but for Earth, for the future, for the dream that carried us to the stars. Let history remember this day, this moment, as the time when humanity stood as one against the darkness. As one, the crew of the Orion's Pride leaped to obey, their fear burned away by the fire of their captain's words, by the blaze of Tara's courage. The Soul came, a tide of shadow and fury. And humanity, united, unyielding, met them head-on, a light to pierce the darkness, a beacon to guide the way to a future beyond imagining. The battle had begun. The legend, forged in the heart of one brave woman, would echo across the stars for all eternity. The battle. Space burned. Lances of energy, beams of cohesive destruction, crisscrossed the void as the ships of the Soul Dominion and the lone defender of humanity clashed in a dance of death and defiance. The Orion's Pride, outgunned and outmatched, weaved and dodged amidst the maelstrom, its shields flaring under the onslaught, its weapons spitting back fire with a fury born of desperation. On the bridge, Captain Lena Sorensen clung to her command chair as the ship bucked and shuddered around her. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, the acrid scent of burned circuitry filling the air. But she did not flinch, did not bow. Her eyes were fixed on the view screen, on the tide of enemy ships that sought to drown them in darkness. Hard to port. She yelled over the cacophony of battle. Airy, bring us about full burn on the thrusters. Airy, his face streaked with sweat and grime, his hands flying over the controls, obeyed without hesitation. The Orion's Pride, engines howling, swung hard to the left, narrowly avoiding a lance of crimson energy that would have cut it in half. Jamal, status report, Lena demanded. Jamal, hunched over his console, his eyes wide and haunted, shook his head. Shields at 30% and falling fast. he reported, his voice tight with strain. "Weapons are overheating. We can't sustain this level of output much longer." Lena gritted her teeth, her mind racing. They were fighting with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. The Xol were too many, their ships too powerful. They needed an edge, a trump card, something to turn the tide. Her eyes fell on Terra, who stood at the tactical station, her face a mask of concentration as she directed the ship's weapons. Terra, who had already achieved the impossible once. Terra, who carried the hopes of humanity on her young shoulders. "Terra," Lena called, her voice cutting through the din. "That key you were searching for, that advantage from the megastructure's technology, now would be a really good time." Terra looked up, her eyes meeting Lena's. For a moment, the chaos of the battle seemed to fall away, leaving only the two of them, captain and hero, bound by a trust and a purpose beyond words. Then Terra nodded, a small, fierce smile tugging at her lips. "I think I've got something," she said. "A frequency, a pattern in the energy signatures of the Xol ships. If we can match it, resonate with it, we might be able to disrupt their systems, even the odds a little." Lena felt a surge of hope, a wild, desperate fire kindling in her heart. "Do it," she commanded. "Jamal, divert all available power to the weapons. Ari, get ready to bring us in close. We're going to hit them where it hurts." The crew leaped to obey, their movements fueled by a newfound purpose. Terra's fingers flew over her console, inputting the resonance frequency, modulating the ship's weapons to match. The Orion's Pride, engines screaming, thrusters burning white-hot, surged forward, straight into the heart of the Xol formation. Beams of energy lashed at its shields, seeking to tear it asunder, but it did not falter. Firing resonance burst. "Now," Terra cried, her voice a clarion call above the tumult. From the prow of the Orion's Pride, a pulse of energy erupted, a shimmering wave of force that spread out like ripples in a cosmic pond. It washed over the Xol ships, and where it touched, chaos erupted. Shields flickered and died. Weapon systems shorted out in cascades of sparks. Engines sputtered and went dark. The Xol ships, their systems disrupted, their power failing, began to drift, helpless and vulnerable. On the bridge of the Orion's Pride, a cheer went up, a primal cry of victory against impossible odds. Lena, her heart pounding, her blood singing with the thrill of battle, turned to Terra, pride and wonder shining in her eyes. "You did it," she breathed. "You beautiful, brilliant, brave woman. You did it again." Terra, her face flushed with triumph, grinned back. "We did it," she corrected. "Humanity did it. Together." But even as they celebrated, even as they dared to hope, the comm system crackled to life, a voice of malice and menace filling the air. "Impressive humans." It was Zolrath, the words dripping with venom and hate. "But futile. You think one trick, one moment of defiance, can save you. You think you can stand against the might of the Xol Dominion." On the view screen, the image of the flagship filled the frame, a monstrous shape of jagged edges and pulsing malevolent light. And from its heart, a new weapon was emerging, a spire of dark energy that crackled and seethed with barely contained power. "Behold the doom of your species," Zolrath snarled. "Behold the price of your insolence. The Xol do not forget. The Xol do not forgive." The spire pulsed, a heartbeat of annihilation, and a beam of pure, unadulterated darkness erupted from its tip, lancing toward the Orion's Pride with the inevitability of oblivion. Time seemed to slow, to stretch into an infinite moment of crystalline clarity. Lena saw the beam coming, saw death and extinction bearing down on all she held dear. She saw the faces of her crew, her family, etched with fear and defiance in equal measure. And she saw Terra, brave, brilliant Terra, moving with a speed and a purpose that defied belief. Terra, who leaped to the navigation console, who pushed Ari aside with a strength born of desperation, who laid in a course that could only be described as suicidal. straight for the flagship, straight for the heart of the darkness. Tara, no. Lena screamed, understanding and horror dawning in equal measure. You can't. But Tara, her face set with a calm beyond calm, a peace beyond peace, only smiled. I can, she said softly. I must. For Earth, for humanity, for the future. Her hand came down on the controls, engaging the thrusters in a burn that shook the ship to its core. The Orion's Pride, engines howling in agony, leaped forward, a silver arrow aimed at the heart of a god of darkness. The beam of the Xol weapon, a lance of purest night, struck the Orion's Pride head-on. And the world vanished in a maelstrom of light and fury and the end of all things. In the heart of the maelstrom, in the eye of extinction, Tara Nichols, hero of Earth, closed her eyes and smiled. She had done all she could, given all she had. She had bought her species a chance, however slim, however dearly bought. The rest was up to them. The rest was up to the indomitable spirit of humanity, the unyielding will that had carried them to the stars and beyond. The rest was up to hope, and to the dreams that never died, that burned eternal in the hearts of all who dared to reach for the impossible. In the darkness, in the silence, a thought, a prayer, a promise. Lena, Earth, humanity. Remember, remember and fight. Remember and win. The light faded, the silence deepened, and the story, the legend, the undying hope, carried on. The hope, darkness, silence, a void where once there had been light, life, the fierce and vibrant pulse of hope and defiance. In the stillness of shattered space, the wreckage of the Orion's Pride drifted, a broken thing, a monument to a dream that had burned too bright, too brief. On the bridge, Lena stirred, her eyes fluttering open to a world of pain and loss. Consoles sparked and smoked around her, the acrid scent of charred metal and burnt dreams filling her lungs. She tried to move, to stand, but her body betrayed her, broken and battered by the forces that had ripped her ship asunder. Tara, the name was a whisper, a prayer, a desperate plea to an uncaring universe. Tara, please. But there was no answer, no miracle to light the darkness. Tara was gone, lost to the void, a hero whose light had burned out in a blaze of glory and sacrifice. Tears streaked Lena's face, cutting through the grime and the blood. Tears for Tara, for her crew, for the dream that had carried them to the stars only to be snuffed out by the cruelty of the cosmos. Captain, a voice, weak and strained, cut through the haze of grief. Airy, dragging himself up from the wreckage of his console, his face a mask of pain and sorrow. Captain, the console, the flagship. Lena's eyes snapped to the view screen, to the image of the sole flagship, or what remained of it. The monstrous ship, the harbinger of humanity's doom, was a ruin, its jagged edges shattered, its malevolent light extinguished. And around it, the remnants of the Sol fleet drifted, broken and powerless, a testament to the price of underestimating the human spirit. She did it, Lena whispered, wonder and grief warring in her heart. Tara, she saved us. She saved us all. But at what cost? As the crew of the Orion's Pride gathered around their captain, battered and bloody but alive, the weight of their loss, the enormity of their sacrifice, settled upon them like a shroud. They had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that had sought their annihilation, they had emerged victorious. But the price had been too high. In the days that followed, as the Orion's Pride limped back to Earth, as the story of their battle, their triumph, spread like wildfire across the stars, Lena felt the weight of Tara's absence like a hole in her heart, a wound that would never heal. But even in her grief, even in her pain, she knew that Tara's sacrifice, her courage, had not been in vain. She had shown the universe what humanity was capable of, what they could achieve when they stood together, when they refused to bow to fear or fate. Tara Nichols, The girl who had fixed an ancient alien elevator with nothing but a hairpin and a heart full of hope had become a legend, a symbol of all that was best and brightest in the human spirit. Her story, her legacy, would endure long after the last star had burned out in the sky. And as Lena stood on the bridge of the Orion's Pride, as she looked out at the stars that Tara had loved so much, she made a vow, a promise to the memory of the woman who had given everything for the dream of a better tomorrow. "We won't forget," she whispered, her voice a prayer, a benediction. "We won't let your light go out, Tara. We'll carry on. We'll reach for the stars, for the future you believed in. And we'll do it together, as one species, one heart, one unbreakable hope." The stars glimmered and danced, a cosmic symphony of light and possibility. And in their depths, a single thought, a single word, a single imperishable truth. Remember. Remember and carry on. Remember and reach, always for the light. The legend of Tara Nichols, hero of Earth, dreamer of the impossible, had only just begun. The end.